So it's a beautiful Sunday morning, and I thought I'd bring you out on the mire and just show you a little of the beauty of where we live, surrounded by the red kites and the kestrels and the herons and the barn owls and the curlews. And I've never been much of a bird spotter, but down here it's just been a wonderful context to be in. Just yesterday morning, a foal was born in the field up above, and just crazy us being here. You know, I work in some really rich pads in North Yorkshire, beautiful places, and yet I come back to this, and I know that I've absolutely no need to be jealous whatsoever. Just the kindness of God and the craziness of God. And the reality is that 10 years ago, when we were looking to move, we felt the time was ready for us to move on. Kathy was getting worn out by always living by busy main roads. Yet we had no cards to play, no financial muscle perhaps to move where one or two of our friends were moving to across the city of Leeds. There was one day a random knock on the door, and several months later we found ourselves down here renting out our home in East Leeds and moving to this context. And just crazy, really. Control is completely overrated, because if you're in control, then maybe we're going to miss Holy Spirit moments where He's just able to take hold of us, and the wind of God can blow us and put us in a context that we would never have imagined otherwise. And so here we are, and this has been just an incredibly safe place for us as a family these last years, but particularly for me to work through some of my issues. I just know I'd have been so dangerous. It had been so dangerous if I'd have continued strutting my stuff wherever I was, and so kind of the Lord to tuck us away in such a safe place. But if control is overrated, being out of control is not a lot of fun either. And down here, as I've alluded to before, I've known what it is to just have to deal with a level of fear and anxiety I've never had to deal with before. And no, I've never had a panic attack, but I've been near enough to know or to imagine what that must feel like, and to have your confidence so shot to bits that you suddenly find yourself almost becoming what I used to call part of the net curtain brigade. That is, you know, you begin to fear stepping out of your own door, just simply because you don't have the confidence you used to have. And so in this context, I've been able to just allow the Holy Spirit to meet with me in the fragility of my own emotions and my mind, and the sense of betrayal I carried, and that I'm not particularly proud of, but the reality is I did feel betrayed by the Lord. I did feel completely abandoned in that Jeddah gate. And yet that was coming from a theological context that I just do not accept now. That was coming from the context where I presumed that God was in control, and yet the reality is God is not in control. But He's always looking to work on our behalf, always looking to redeem, always looking to partner with us. And so this has been the place where I've worked through those issues, and we've begun to get our lives back on track. And if you're in a situation where you feel that you've got no room to move, and what my friend Joe Story calls choice poverty, and with poverty there is a limitation of choice, which can make long weekends difficult when you haven't got money to spend on the kids, or you haven't got money to take yourselves out for a meal or something like that, and that then can fuel relationships, because there isn't the excitement and the creativity that sometimes having options brings. But if you're in that sort of situation where there's a narrowing down of choice, I just want to encourage you this morning that as with us, that the wind of God can just break in and take you completely by surprise, and blow you into a context that is way beyond any of your expectations. And so we are very firmly now in this creational context. I've been a follower of Jesus for quite a few decades, and for the bigger part of that time I've always worked out of a congregational context. But unashamedly, the Lord has picked us up and put us into what I would call a creational context down here. And for those of you who know the postal address of where we live and the allusion to the mire and the thorns and the thistles and the sand, then you'll know that it's very, very real, the framework that the Lord has put around our lives. And so we make no comment about congregation. I see wonderful things happening across congregations in Leeds and elsewhere that I just sit back and applaud. And down here, to be honest, I have no missional portfolio that I can raise and say how much I've achieved. And yet, as I look into revival history and as I look into church growth, I very rarely see the incredible church growth that there's been at times being matched by a transformation in society, a transformation in the land. And so I make no apology for the context that God has put us, that of creation, where we're looking for transformation at the very deepest points of society, as well as and adding in to the kingdom of those who are choosing to follow Jesus. And so we've been here these last 9 years wrestling with the thorns and the thistles, and seeing what sort of story can come through out of this context. So this, I believe, is my 6th vlog. I hope you're finding them provocative. I hope that you're feeling that there's aspects of which you can identify with. And if coming out of any of these vlogs there's any particular issues I've alluded to that maybe you want me to revisit, well, I may have nothing more to say on them, and I hope in the future to be drawing a few others in who probably do have a lot more to say than me. But thank you for watching, and I'm going to go and get myself a nice warm cup of coffee.